Lopez Lake.
Woo! Welcome to Lopez Lake. We're so excited to be here and we're happy to have you guys with us. You notice here we're in a beautiful spot that looks like it'll be a good habitat for our trout, but we need to make sure that it actually is. So before we get started, everyone's gonna grab their field journal. I'm gonna have Nat and Ryan help me with our field journals today. You should have received your field journal from your teacher either in a Word document, a Google form, or a printed copy. Any of these will work. Fill out the front of your field journal now. You can pause the video and come back whenever you're ready. Now that you have your field journal ready, let's go to the first page titled Trout Scout Station. So we want to make a claim. Do you think trout can live in Lopez Lake? Circle your claim. So go ahead and circle your claim now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go down our list and make sure that this is a good habitat for our trout. So we're gonna be testing for dissolved oxygen. We're gonna test for pH. So dissolved oxygen is just how much oxygen is actually in the water. pH is gonna help us measure if it's acidic or basic. And temperature, we're gonna make sure that it's in the right temperature range. All right, so if you remember, our trout came from water that was around 49 degrees. Now that they're a little bit older, they can be in a little bit warmer water. So now that they're fry and gonna be growing up into juveniles, that temperature can be somewhere between 40 to 60 degrees. So they have a good wide span that they can survive in. So we're gonna test that temperature and make sure it's within that range. We're also gonna just check that we have some trout food. Make sure that we can find different types of food. If you remember what they like to eat, we're gonna go search for those a little bit. We're also gonna go see, do they have places to hide? So we're gonna just make sure that there's some bushes or some overhangs that might be good spots for them to be able to hide somewhere around the lake. And lastly, we're gonna make sure that they can lay their eggs here. So that's gonna be a tough one. We're gonna make sure that we check off all of our lists for being able to lay their eggs. So let's go ahead and check out. We have test kits ready to help us figure out if our water is good quality for the trout. Ryan is going to help us test for dissolved oxygen. First, we took a sample of the lake water to fill up our test tube. Then, we add 2 dissolved oxygen test tablets to the test tube. Next, we mix the tablets into the water until they are completely dissolved. This takes about 4 to 5 minutes. Once the tablets are completely gone, we can read the results by looking at the color of our sample and comparing it to the dissolved oxygen color key. Our sample looks kind of in between the 4 ppm and 8 ppm, so let's put 6 ppm as our answer. By the way, ppm stands for parts per million. This answer tells us that for every 1 million parts of water, there are 6 parts of oxygen. Go ahead and write down our results. Next, Nat is going to test our pH, or how basic or acidic the water is. First, we need to fill up our sample on the pH side of the test kit. Now, we add 5 drops of our pH indicator solution to the water sample, then seal it and turn it over a couple times to mix. Once it's mixed, we can read our results. To read our results, only look at what's in the green box. We compare the color of our tested water on the right side of the green box to the color key on the left side. What does the number look like to you? To me, this looks similar to 7.8 and 8.2, so I'm going to put down 8.0 as my answer. Record your results in your field journal now. Next, Dawn is going to help us find out the temperature of the water. Do you remember what instrument we use to measure temperature? We use a thermometer. Dawn is holding the thermometer in the water for 1 minute, or until the reading on the thermometer stops changing. He has to read the results quickly because as he takes the thermometer out of the water, the thermometer starts changing to read the temperature of the air. Dawn tells us the temperature is 60 degrees. Don't forget to record this in your journal. Another habitat need that we need to look for is food. So we want to make sure that there is trout food that will allow them to survive and be happy here. Do you remember what a trout likes to eat? Remember, they like to eat mollusks, so things that like clams and mussels, things that have the shells that hide in the sand or under any gravel or substrate. We also want to look for maybe larvae or signs of insects. Also other fish. So let's see if we can find those here. We already saw some other birds that were hunting for fish, so we know there's other fish in here. What about all of this that we see on the ground? I'm finding tons of clam shells. All of these that have been broken apart and eaten. This was an animal at one point. So this is a great source of food for those trout. And then I'm also noticing floating on top of the water are some little larvae exoskeletons. So that is kind of the outer skeleton of an insect. And they're all floating on top of the water, which tells me that some of those guys are growing and living here. So that's a good sign. We've got trout food. Right here is one of those exoskeletons I was talking about. So as that animal grows, it actually has to shed the outside of its body layer to grow larger. Yeah. So that's the sign of some damselflies around here. When we were walking down to the lake, you may have looked around the edges of the water and noticed some bushes or trees on the far sides of the lake. These are going to provide shade and places for the fish to hide out of sight from predators. Also, as leaves or branches break and fall into the water, this will provide even more hiding habitat for the trout. The last thing we need to check for is a place for the trout to lay their eggs. Do you remember what trout need to lay their eggs? They look for cold water with lots of oxygen and gravel or pebbles at the bottom. The lake itself might be too sandy and warm for the trout to lay their eggs, but when they are old enough and it comes time to mate, these trout will migrate up these creeks that drain into Lopez Lake in search of good nesting habitat. Now that we have filled out our trout survival checklist, let's look at our results. For each question, circle the correct answer if the result was too high, too low, just right, yes or no. Based on our data, circle what you think. Yes, trout can live in Lopez Lake, or no, trout cannot live in the lake. Why do you think this? Take a moment to write down your answer. You can pause the video and come back when you're ready. Great job! Based on our data, we think that yes, trout can live in the lake. We think this because we're able to find or determine that everything on our trout survival checklist could be found at Lopez Lake. All right, so now that we know that this is an okay habitat for our trout, we want to slowly acclimate them, so we want them to adjust to the new water. So we're going to add some of this new water slowly into the buckets so that they have time to adjust to the new temperature and the new changes that they're experiencing. So the slower, the better. So while we're waiting for our trout to adjust to their water, we might as well look around and see what we can find. So we've got a beautiful habitat here, and there's already some wildlife that we're seeing. Are you able to spot them? I just saw one pop up out of the water. Does anyone know what that bird, it just disappeared again. Does anyone know what it is? That bird is called a cormorant. Sometimes you'll see them standing with their wings out, and they're actually trying to dry their wings. Even though they are great flyers, they're also great swimmers. So they're actually hunting for fish right now. moving on to our next station for our insect investigation station. So go ahead and open your field journal to your insect investigation station page, and we're going to be trying to figure out our claim. Insects and other invertebrates live in or near Lake Lopez. So Nat, Ryan, and myself are going to go explore and see if we can find some insects, and if we do find any, we'll come back and show them to you, but you guys should go explore your own backyards and see what insects you can find. All right, so we only looked around for about 15 minutes, but in that short amount of time, we found lots of butterflies, we found a grasshopper, some spiders, some other little beetles and flies. So we tallied up that we found 10 different insects or spiders, but we also found one that we weren't quite sure what it was, but we didn't find any worm-like types of invertebrates. Now remember, an invertebrate is an animal without a backbone. So if you feel down your spine, do you guys have a backbone? Yeah, right? So we are not invertebrates, we are vertebrates. We have backbones. So we were looking for different animals that did not have a backbone. And we found a couple, but we didn't find a lot in that amount of time.
Pause the video to draw an insect you saw in the video or one that you found while exploring around your school or neighborhood. You can either tally up how many insects you saw in the video, or if you looked around your school or neighborhood, tally up the total number you found. Then go to the next page to write down your results. Come back to the video when you're ready.
So, moving on to our results, are we going to say, based on our data, insects and other invertebrates like Lopez Lake, a lot, a little, or not at all? What do you think? So based on our results, looking for 15 minutes and finding that many, I'm going to say we're somewhere between a little to a lot. Because if we were to keep searching around, I bet you we'd find a lot more insects that were around here. And we didn't even look at insects that might be near the water. So there are a lot of aquatic insects. So maybe the next time you're near water, you can go and look for some.
Great job! Here are our results. Let's move on to the litter station. Do you think water in the lake travels to the ocean or from the ocean? Circle your claim. To help you with this claim, think back to some of your first POW lessons talking about water moving through a watershed. Do you know the difference between leaf litter and human litter? When leaves fall from trees, they fall to the ground and end up in our waterways, like Lopez Lake. The leaves will float or sink and eventually be carried downstream to the ocean. Sometimes we call this leaf litter, but leaf litter isn't a problem because it's natural and breaks down quickly. The same thing happens with human litter that isn't thrown away properly. It will end up flowing downstream and into our oceans. But does it break down quickly like the leaf litter does? If you had a leaf and a plastic bottle, and you only had 5 seconds to break each of them down into as many small pieces as possible, which do you think could break down into more pieces? The leaf or the plastic bottle? Let's try. We were able to crumble crumble the leaf into lots of tiny pieces really quickly, but we could only break down the plastic bottle into 2 pieces in the same amount of time. Just like in this experiment, human litter takes much longer to break down in nature. This can be a big problem for our habitats. Wildlife might think it's food and try to eat it, or it can harm their food source or their environment.
So when you're out exploring on the habitats or out on a trail, we want to make sure that we're leaving it cleaner than we found it. So a lot of the time this litter is going to end up in our oceans, and it travels from upstream downstream to the ocean. So the same thing happens where leaf litter, but also actual litter, will pile up down in our oceans. We found just this when we were releasing our trout. So we're going to make sure that we collect it and throw it away appropriately.
Let's look at our results. Lopez Lake is part of the Arroyo Grande watershed. This is a picture of a watershed. Draw an arrow showing which way the water flows. Next, circle the item that will break down faster, the leaf or the plastic bottle. Feel free to pause the video to do these steps, and then answer the questions on the next page. Come back to this video when you're ready. Great job! Here are our results. Go ahead and flip to your Habitat Hike activity page. As we hike around, we're going to see if we can find the 5 habitats we talked about in our last lesson before this virtual field trip. Do you remember what 5 local habitats we talked about? You can pause the video and write down the 5 habitats now, then come back when you're ready. For the rest of the activity, feel free to pause the video anywhere on our hike to answer the next few questions. You're going to choose 2 habitats that you see on our hike and draw a plant and animal from those habitats. You can also describe what the leaves in those habitats might feel like or look like. Be sure to write down any observations you notice along the way. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Sketch anything you see that seems interesting. Lastly, don't forget about the habitat scavenger hunt. How many can you find? Remember, you can pause the video as you go along so you can fill out your journal. Are you ready? Let's go!
Okay, everybody, this is the beginning of our naturalist hike out here at Lopez Lake. We just let the trout go, and now we're going to go take a walk through a whole bunch of different habitats that are upstream of the aquatic zone where the trout live, but it's all connected in nature. And today we're going to see some of the habitat that is different. One bit of habitat is different from another. We're going to look at the different plants and animals that live in each habitat, and we're going to see how it looks, and we're going to experience it. And soon I hope you get to come out here with us and smell it and feel it and enjoy it. But today it's all virtual. So right now we're at the trailhead of Turkey Ridge Trail. We're going to head up to Blackberry Springs Trail, and we're going to walk through several different kinds of habitats. Look up here. Look what we got above us. What do you suppose we're in right now? This is oak woodland. So we got a bunch of oaks all around us. We're in this beautiful kind of dappled shade on this sunny, warm day, and we're going to get about to go up a steep hill. Let's go.
Naturalist Ryan told me that this here is called hummingbird sage, and that says it smells delicious. So I'm gonna try and smell it, but we also have some poison oak around here, so we want to be careful. But I don't want to pick the plant either. See if I can find some. Ooh, smells good. What's this, Nat?
That is gooseberry. It's related to currants, but this one you can tell is different from a currant because even though the leaves are pretty similar, there's little spikes all over the stem of it.
Okay, we've just come up a steep hill and we're still in the oak woodland, but we're coming up to the top of the hill and it's going to shift in a minute. But I want you to look out over the watershed. The lake is on the other side of that little hill right there. It's down that other side. That's where the trout are swimming around. But this is where all of these hills, when it rains, it drains down. There's the lake right there. See it? Through the trees. That's where we just were. And now we're up here higher, so it's the conditions are changing for the plants and animals. We're going to move out of the oak habitat into some shrublands and grasslands. Let's go check it out.
Do you mind just telling us what it is you're doing out here?
We're doing some trail maintenance on various trails around Lopez Lake. Cutting the brush back, getting the poison oak out of the trail, any overhanging limbs so people don't bump their head. Just getting it all out of the way so that it's more comfortable and accessible for hikers.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
And right there, you see a turkey vulture.
What do turkey vultures eat, Ryan?
Turkey vultures eat detritus, and detritus is dead material that's decomposing.
There's the greens.
So when you're out hiking, this is a great opportunity to learn and use iNaturalist like you guys did in some of your lessons. So I have it downloaded on my phone. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take a photo of a plant and see if I can identify what it is. Let's get a photo and upload to iNaturalist. So we identified that it's a blue-eyed grass. Very cool. And that's the end of our trail. All right, Ryan, tell us what you did for your first habitat choice.
So I chose to do grassland, and I drew a California buttercup and a monarch butterfly.
Awesome. And then what are the leaves like?
The leaves are smooth and unscented.
Very cool.
Yeah, and green.
Did you see that today on the hike?
I did. I saw many of them. Yeah. They're
Awesome.
beautiful yellow golden flowers, and then pretty small and squat.
Very good. Thanks, Ryan.
Of course.
All right, Nat. So did you notice anything on our hike today?
I did. So first I noticed a lot of poison oak, which is tough. I'm allergic to poison oak, so had to avoid that. And then I noticed lots of owl pellets and some quail, so there was definitely some birds along the hike. And then some sagebrush, some coast live oaks, and a bunch of wildflowers. So definitely a couple different habitats.
Saw a lot of different things.
Yeah, tons.
Did you wonder about anything while you were out there?
I did. So I was wondering, as we were looking out over a lot of the nice places with views, what it looked like before people were here. So what the lake looked like, and what the streams might have looked like, where they might have gone, and then what all of the little areas that we were hiking in looked like the forested areas, what those looked like before the people were here.
Those are great questions and good things to wonder about. We might explore that a little bit later on.
Cool.
And then, did you sketch anything that you saw?
I did. So I sketched this little flower that I saw, and I wasn't actually sure what it was, which was why I sketched it, so that way I could figure it out later. But Ryan knew what it was, so the mystery has been solved. Do you remember?
Some blue-eyed grass.
Some
Awesome.
blue-eyed grass.
Great job, Nat. Thanks for sharing. And then it looks like you found everything on your
Yeah.
scavenger hunt. Wow.
Yeah, we had a great scavenger hunt. We did some good hiking. So, yeah.
Great job.
Thanks.
So you guys could have done your scavenger hunt along with us as we hiked today, but you could also go on your own scavenger hunt and hike around a trail near you, or maybe you have the chance to come to Lake Lopez sometime in the future.
So feel free to come and check out. We did Turkey Ridge Trail and we also did Blackberry Springs Trail. So maybe you can go and find some of the things we saw today. Wow, we had such a fun day. We got to go explore some of our hiking trails at Lake Lopez. We got to release our trout into an awesome habitat and we got to explore, look for some insects, talk a little bit about litter and leaf litter, and hoping that you guys had just as fun of a day as we did. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.